What do a speaking coach, a strategy consultant, and a business owner have in common? Sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? But honestly, it's all about finding out what people really do in their jobs. The stories, the struggles, the coffee breaks. The real stuff you won't find in a job title.
Welcome to a space where we sit down with people from all kinds of careers, have a laugh, and dive into what makes their work meaningful. Whether you're looking to learn something new or just here for a good story, let us be your guide. I'm Geoff.
And I'm Charlie.
And let's get...
And I'm
Casually Bro!
All right. Yes. You heard it during the intro. Ken Miller is with us. Ken, you're the author of Becoming, in which you share your crazy story from Ivy League to becoming a speaker and many times business owner. Well, the story is crazy because in between you had issues with drugs, you were homeless, you were in prison multiple times. This is a story about resilience, courage, and big change. Ken, I'm very happy to be here with you today. Can you please start by sharing who you are, what you do, and how you got to do what you do?
Sure. Let's just start with, my name is Ken Miller. I'm 62 years old. I'm an African-American male, and I live in Bellingham, Washington. I'm a business owner. I have 5 businesses at this time, and I'm looking maybe to get another one here at some point. I'm an author of a book called Becoming Ken. I have 3 more that are in the process right now of being printed and published. And so I'm looking forward to that. I speak all over the country, and I'm also a property owner in 2 different countries. But to get to this point, that's a lot of my story, and I'd like to share that. And with your permission, I'd love to start at the 30,000-foot view of my story so that the listener and the audience can get an understanding of what I have done to overcome, or what we call come back from the setback. Real simple, is 1962, my mother was a white teenage female runaway. And she met my father in New York, who was a black pimp and drug dealer. I am the byproduct. I am biracial. At birth, I was put up for adoption. I did 6 years of foster homes, and then I was adopted by Irene and Sam Miller. At age 6, I could not read. I could not write. I could not tell time. I could not even tie my shoes. And my mother taught me how to read that first summer. I was 6 years old, going into 2nd grade at that time. And by the time I was halfway through 2nd grade, I was reading at the 5th grade level. I was what they would call precocious. I believe there's some innate intelligence there within my genetic line, and I have evidence for that. But the key thing is, by the time I was 17, I was a National Merit Scholar. I was accepted to Harvard University. I went to Dartmouth College, so I had my Ivy League degree. But unfortunately, I had a little problem with drinking at that time. I joined a fraternity. I tell everybody I graduated from Dartmouth with a degree in fraternity with a minor in drinking. And that was my degree and my major. And I got out, went into the corporate world, did well for 2 years because I was sober. And then I was to relapse and spend the next 21 years homeless, in jail, in treatment, or in prison. I'm a 3-time convicted felon. I've spent many years behind bars. And finally, in 2007, I was released, hopefully for the last time, a somewhat different person than the individual that went into prison. And hopefully we can talk a little bit about change and transition and the skill sets that are needed to make those transitions and changes successfully. I got out in 2007, could only get a job in a warehouse, but that's fine. Within 3 years, I was a development director for a nonprofit, means fundraiser. And 4 years after that, I started my first business, Denali FSP, as a fundraising coach and also grant writer for nonprofits. Been very successful in those endeavors. Started speaking about 14 years ago, starting writing books about 4 years ago, started doing property acquisition about 3 years ago. And I also am involved with artificial intelligence and offshore virtual assistants. I have a company that has contractors, and I have staff in Ecuador and in the Philippines for that company. That's the real high level version.
To say I'm astounded is a little underplaying that, but that's truly an incredible journey. And I think, I oftentimes joke on this podcast that our hosts have a background that has everything but the kitchen sink, but it sounds to me like you might even have the kitchen sink.
I was under the kitchen sink. Okay.
But I we'll get into this in a second, but there's just like a tremendous amount of change.
Mhm.
And I'm just so curious because there are a lot of peaks and valleys in there, it
Right,
seems like.
right.
But you come off as just such a worldly and educated guy. I
I
want to
am.
know a little bit about just how your mindset kind of changed between, okay, I'm on this trajectory of I guess I would say like traditional success, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Of going through the Ivy Leagues, going into the corporate world, and then was there like a moment where you said maybe like this isn't what I want, or like how did that happen?
So, and it's a lot easier when we look back, even though I sort of knew at the time what was happening. So what we have is what we call pivot moments. And what a pivot moment is, there's a before and a after. It's like AD and BC, or CE and BC. And there's a moment that something happened in the Christian church. We can go into that. That gives you your AD or CE. Now they call it Christian Air. But in mine, I had a pivot moment of September 22nd, 2004. And very simply, I woke up that morning, or came to that morning, fully in my addiction. And I was living in a closet in a rooming house, literally living there, been there for 3 or 4 days in this closet. It's a broom closet, just me, my beer, my crack, and the mops and brooms. The landlord came by, which I wasn't expecting, and said, "You have to leave because I don't like people living in my broom closets." So I got up and called my mother, because I was at my last rope and I was suicidal at that point. I'd given up hope. And I said, "Can you send me to treatment one more time?" This would have been treatment number 14. She says, "Yes, Kenneth. The ticket will be waiting for you at the bus station." I said, "Okay." So I had to get some money for the bus ride. So I went out what we call a hustle, and I was paid in a $10 rock of crack cocaine. I sold that to the undercover, but this is the pivot moment. I am handcuffed, waiting for literally what they call a paddy wagon. And I'm crying profusely. And I remember the cop comes over and says, "Why are you crying? Is everything all right? Are you hurt? Or did something happen? Or whatever." And I looked at him and I said, "No, I'm crying because I'm going to live. I can't survive on the streets." I didn't tell him all that part, but I told him, "I'm crying because I'm going to live. I can do prison. I've been to prison twice. I've been in jail 15, 20 times. I can do that life, but I can't do me in my condition on the streets." Okay. So I go in September 22nd. I celebrate my sobriety date is September 23rd. So I'm coming up on this month on 21 years of being clean and sober. Next month, October, I'm lying on the bunk and I have a conversation with God. Or more importantly, I listen to God. And God, to me, very simply said, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be without discomfort. And he's talking about the journey. He's talking about the growth. He's talking about the change. Because for many people, change is painful. And it was for me. But I will be there with you. Just follow my will. Do the right thing, Ken. Do the right thing. Not the thing that causes you the least amount of pain, not the thing that gives you the most amount of pleasure, because that's where my will gets in discord with God's will. There's no congruence between my will and God's will when I'm thinking about my pleasure or putting off pain or discomfort to do the right thing. And ever since that day, I've been cool. Ever since that day, I've been growing. But it really was that day in the penitentiary, October 2004, that is my pivot point. But I had the physical pivot point of the arrest. Remember, arrest means just to stop. And it stopped. It stopped me. And I didn't have to worry about food. I didn't have to worry about a roof over my head. I didn't have to worry about drug dealers looking to kill me. I didn't have to worry about arrest warrants that I had on the streets. It freed me. And I tell people this all the time. The greatest thing that happened to me, the best thing that ever happened to me was being sentenced to 3 years. Well, I got sentenced to 6 years in the penitentiary. That was the best. More than marriage, more than births. For me, that was the best thing that ever happened because it allowed me a foundation to change. And we can talk more about change and what does that entail, but it gave me that foundation. So that's my pivot moment. And from that point on, I have been open and willing to change.
Wow. And if I make my numbers right, it was in 2004. So you were already in your 40s at that time. Wow. So if you listen to this and you think that it's too late for you to start anything, I think this is an amazing story that you can do it even when you start from the bottom with addiction. And because it's a habit also, Ken, the question I would like to ask you is, you were living day by day. Entrepreneurship is something that requires a time frame in years. Writing a book is also something that takes a lot of time. How did you get past this, what I expect to be also an addiction to immediate gratification?
Well, so doing God's will, that took care of the immediate gratification. One of the most difficult things for people to sometimes grasp is what we call time horizons. It's a time horizon. I mentor all over the country. I have men that I mentor for free all over the country. And I always talk with all of them about maturity. What is maturity? And one of the hallmarks of maturity is a long time horizons. And I say, if you have difficulty, let's think in antithesis. Let's think in opposites. And what is immaturity? How does a 4-year-old make a decision? A 4-year-old makes a decision. It's always about self, and it's always about now. I just had the 2-year-old come in the room. The decision, he goes outside. He wants to go outside now. That's his decision. I'm hungry now, popsicle. I don't know how he learned that word, but he knows popsicle, okay? So maturity is increasing that time horizon. And really, the more mature you become, usually, the longer your time horizon becomes. So you can make decisions that are based on, and I'm going to correct you on something you had said. I was making decisions daily. As a drug addict, I made decisions hourly. Next 5 minutes, what do I need to do for the next 5 minutes to either acquire alcohol, acquire crack cocaine, or find a place to smoke it and stay that night. But it never went more than a day. Okay. I knew I had a court date 2 weeks from now. Catch me when you can. But now I'm maturing. And when I first got out of prison, my time horizon might have been, well, it was my time horizon was about a week because that's when I needed to pay the halfway house. I had to find work to pay my rent. And then it's expanded. And now, and even for the last probably 5 years, I make decisions that are 5 years, 10 years down the line. I'm making decisions for when I pass away. Literally. I don't know when it is. It might be 20 years, but I'm putting away money and doing things for my family to provide for them at a level that they're accustomed to. But that's years away. So it was a great question. And that is such an important component of maturity is the ability to make decisions. You can say delay gratification. It's not even about gratification at that point. What's the right thing to do to provide for yourself when you're 40, when you're 50, when you retire? What can we do today? And I've embraced that, and I've done really well with that. But I've seen people who don't. I can show you out of 50 guys or 100 guys that get out of the penitentiary, 90 of them are going to take care of immediate gratification. And what we're talking about, they'll get the clothes, they'll get the jewelry. I mean, these are the people I was locked up with, okay? I got out with a box, literally about this big. All the possessions I owned in the world was a 12-inch by 12-inch box in the world. And I owed $1,800, which to me was a tremendous. I fed myself. I went out to have a meal twice every 2 weeks. Once on payday, at lunchtime, we'd go to Burger King because we had to cash our checks. And then that night I would treat myself to a burrito. But between that, all of my money went to pay off debt because I understood debt. And this is right out of prison because my mindset had changed. First thing I wanted to do was get out of debt. Now, same thing. May, I got out of debt, but I'm talking about out of debt in like $1 million. But I'm out of debt. I have zero debt. My family has zero debt. It's just at a bigger level. But I still have that same sense of satisfaction in doing the right thing for long term and that I have no debt. And the same thing, it took me about 6 months to get that $1,800 paid off, but I got it paid off. And then now, how do we acquire or how do we create assets and get in what we call a net asset position?
You know, there's something tremendously interesting about what you said because you, when speaking in you know, this version of antithesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
I study really successful people, but people that I feel as though I would love to live their life. Kind of envious positions to be in is the person that walks into a room and everybody knows them. Everybody likes them. Everyone runs up to them and says, "Hey, how are you? Know, it's been so long. Let me buy you a drink. Let me the whole nine." Imagine. And when I think of that level of success, I realize that it's not that that person is probably fabulously wealthy, although some might be. And it's not that that person is particularly very important, although they could be. The reality is that they oftentimes have put other people before them many, many, many times and created a network that is not just sustainable, but thriving because they led with generosity.
Mm-hmm.
And in hearing you speak, it sounds like a really tremendous story, but I'm sure, and I'm not a betting man, but if I did have to bet, that this kind of level of pivot that you went through, not just extended into yourself, but maybe also understanding the world around you through a lens of it's not enough for me to or to serve myself, but to find a way to help others. I want to hear, and selfishly, of course, and this is purely me asking now. I want to hear what that pivot was like when you realized that, okay, not only do I have to think about uh maturity in terms of like time horizons, as you previously mentioned, but in terms of uh really the social personal component. How can I stop thinking about me and start thinking about others?
Get well. Get
Mm,
well. I talk about this often. I'm well. I'm well. I'm not broken.
mm,
When I went to college at age 17, I was broken. When I was adopted at age 6, I was broken. When I went into the penitentiary in 2004, I was broken. When I got out, I was still a little bit broken because I had some more lessons and some more knowledge to gain. I'm well today. I'm not working on Ken. I'm not. Ken does life well. How do you know that, Ken? Because people reflect back their love for me. They reflect back their appreciation for me. They reflect back their admiration for what I've accomplished and what I do for others. So I get that external validation, but more importantly, I know I'm good people. That was a term we used on the streets. Man, he's good people. She's good people. That's like the highest level. It doesn't sound like it, but it is. It's good people. That's what we use in our vernacular. I'm good people. I am a kind and gentle man today. 1997, I went to an anonymous meeting. Again, I just call a spade a spade. I went to an AA meeting, Reno Triangle Club, Reno, Nevada. And I'm sitting there trying to get cleaned up again. Maybe treatment number 9, I don't know, 1997. And I'm sitting in the meeting, a nooner, and this gentleman sitting at the table sharing, and he said, I am a kind and gentle man. And I almost fell out of my seat. Almost physically fell out of my seat. I had never heard a man say that. And where I come from on the streets and in the penitentiary, we don't go around saying I'm a kind and gentle man. You'll get hurt. You'll get used. You'll be taken advantage of. And I've always, that resonated so much with me today that I've been saying it now for at least 10 years. I am a kind and gentle man. And that is of choice. And I worked on me. But see, I worked hard on me. I had time in the penitentiary. I went to the counselor, 1,100 men on that yard. I asked her, how many people you got on your caseload? She wasn't supposed to tell me, but we had built a relationship. She said 2. 2 people. Free counseling. And this is a professional. And there's 2 people on her caseload. But I was one of them, and I was regular. And it helped get me well. And then I continued to work on specific things. I got out. I had a couple stub my toe. And I just talk truth. I had some infidelity in my marriage. And I'm like, what's wrong with this picture? Why did you do that, Ken? I'm talking to myself. And for 2 years, I looked at that, talked to my trusted advisors about it. And 100%, I have an understanding of my whys. Doesn't make it right. And I've said ever since, that was 2009, I have been perfect in my marriage. Perfect. I don't play. I don't play in the gray, is what I tell my guys. Do not play in the gray. If black, quote unquote, is evil, wrong, bad, and white is good. And, I always say this, I'm a black man. I say biracial, but I'm a black man. And, the term saying black is bad, why is that? It has nothing to do with the color of my skin. What it has to do is darkness. As we evolved, darkness was dangerous. being in the dark because we could not see prey and or other tribes, coming to, attack our village. Literally. So darkness is danger. That's why. But I say don't play in the gray. There's that area in between. And so I don't play in the gray. And I teach my guys. At least I share with them. Don't play in the gray. Don't flirt with that girl. You're a married man. You don't need to. Yeah, it's good for the ego. It makes you feel a little goofy because she winked at you or whatever. Don't play. Don't play. So anyway, I got out. I still had to work on issues. I had a whole issue of words. And I don't know if you can resonate with this, but every person usually has something. What I had was there was 3 words that you could not use toward me, and I would react with violence. You could not call me a punk, you couldn't call me a B, and you could not call me an N. And you can guess what the B and the N are. That's up to y'all, okay? But I can use the word punk. You can't call me a punk. I would automatically, because I have a script that I've built in that I have to play out. That was a problem because I got out and my little nephew called me a B. And it wasn't good. I didn't hit him or anything, but I called I called my brother and said, you need to talk to Michael Jr. about this. And he said, put him on the phone. And he came back 2 minutes later, profusely apologizing, because my brother knows about the power of those words in our community. So I had to work on that. I'm out 5-6 years out of the penitentiary. I mean, about 3 years, 4 years. But I worked on all these different areas. And now I've been well for probably about 4 or 5 years, at least 5 years. And what that means is because I'm well, I'm not self-centered about always got to work on me. I don't sit around and read 100 different self-help books. I don't need to. I'm cool with Ken. So in return, I can give out because I'm not working on internal. I can give externally and share some of the wisdom, and I have wisdom and knowledge about especially human behavior, because I've seen everything from murders to, obviously love, marriages and stuff. I've seen everything. Well, I've seen a lot. Okay, I can't say everything.
I really resonate with what you say about being well, because speaking entirely candidly, I didn't feel wellness until 6 years ago when I first moved to New York. So I grew up in, half in Mexico City, half on the other side of the state in Buffalo, New York. And I'm Mexican. And not a lot of Mexicans in Buffalo, New York, if you can believe it, right? And so I shared a very similar kind of trigger with some other words that we don't have to mention here. But when I moved to New York for work, I just graduated college, and I found a job here. The first thing I did was find a guy that's some shade of brown in my neighborhood when we first moved here, and I asked him, like, hey man, is this like a safe area? And he's like, what do you mean, like crime? Like, I mean, no one's getting shot around here. And I'm like, no, I mean like for us, right? Like for
Mhm.
And he looked at me and he's like, you're in Astoria, New York. It is the most diverse place per capita in the entire world. Nobody cares about what you look like. And at that point, I felt very stupid at that point. But inside of me, I felt these fists that are always up just unclench for the first time in decades. And I noticed I was nicer to people. I was happier around, talking to my wife and well, my now wife. At that time, she was my fiance, but she's like, you're always in a good mood. Why are you in a good mood all the time? I don't know. But there's something really profound about this idea of taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others. You know, going back a little bit more into the professional, though,
Mhm.
you know, your exploration of, I guess, and I know I'm talking a lot about the beginning, but this is really important because I think a lot of people forget how formative the first couple of years are, especially after college.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, you said that you woke up in addiction, or you woke up in the full kind of feeling of addiction, no? Um, but were you even happy before that? Is my question. Did you feel as though the path that you were on was the right one? Or was there always some level of trepidation, some level of this isn't quite where I want to be, whether it's I guess, you know, the sense of uh ambition, but also this sense of discomfort.
At what age?
Oh, at right out of college.
Right out of college, I knew that I had messed up
Mm,
already. So I went to Dartmouth College from Bartlett High School, Anchorage, Alaska. I obviously did not go to prep school. I didn't go to Exeter. I didn't go to Hotchkiss. I didn't go to Brooks, Little Miss Porter's. Didn't go there. Okay. Familiar with them all, but didn't go there. And in some ways, even as a National Merit Scholar, I was not prepared for that level. I still remember to this day, first term, English 55, Pease and Paulson, co-professors. That's one thing I've been blessed with is like memory. And I can just remember events and in specifics. And I'm in the lecture hall, you know, and remember, I'm broken going in there. I'm 17 years old and very immature, couldn't drive, never had a girlfriend. I was just I had a jean jacket that had heavy metal bands. I'm a black guy with a jerry curl. They hadn't seen a jerry curl in 3 years on the East Coast, okay? But I got one because I didn't know better. And I got a jean jacket with, you know, not Motley Crue, with Van Halen, Black Sabbath, Led Zepp. You know, they did not know what to do with me. Okay, I didn't know what to do with me. So I go there. I'm in the class, and the professor starts lecturing, and he says dichotomy. Then he says bifurcate, and I looked around like, who's he talking to? Because I had never heard of these words. I know them now, to, you know, because those resonate, those two words. And I struggled. I wouldn't have struggled as much academically. I came out with a C minus myself out of the college, but I drank so much. Yeah, I had my first drink October of 1980. You know, we entered September 1980. By Within a month, I was a full blown alcoholic. One month, 1 month. My mom sent me to my first AA meeting. I was 18 years old. That's crazy. But I had to be exposed to the chemical, and then, okay. So when I got out of college, barely, I'd flunked a couple of courses. They don't give you Fs, they give you Es at Dartmouth. I'd flunked a couple for a couple of different reasons. Yeah, I flunked. But anyway, I get out, and I knew I'd already screwed up because I came out with a full addiction. And then well, I hadn't told the story. My graduation present was my first treatment center. My first college. I thought I was going to get a car. Did not get the car. I got the treatment center, but it helped me stay sober for a couple of years. So my dream when I was a kid was to be the first black senator from Alaska, first black senator. And a lot of people said, yeah, you'll do it. You'll make it. You got every attribute to be the first black senator. President was this is 1980, maybe today with Obama or maybe, but that was way ahead of me. But I could be a senator. There was the guy from Massachusetts, Charles something, he was a black senator from Massachusetts. So I could do that. And so I was going to be a lawyer. I was going to go to law school, but I so barely got out of college, I couldn't even do that. And then I went into the corporate world, did really well in the corporate world for 2 years because I was sober. And then once I relapsed in 86, from 86 to 2007, it was, term we used was on and cracking. And let me give kudos to you, Charles, being a Mexican in New York. I didn't even know they had Mexicans in New York. I'm from New York. Where I grew up, it was Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. I had never seen a Mexican. I moved to Alaska, and I know this is not really Mexican food, but I'm sitting there, I'm in 8th grade, and they had a corn dog on the plate to serve us. And I'm like, where's the food? I thought that was dessert because I had a stick. I thought it was some kind of ice cream. And I'm like, this corn dog, I'd never seen a corn dog. I'd never seen a taco. Okay. And so when people talk about now, as you know, Hispanics, especially Mexican American, are everywhere. But back in the day, at least where I'm from in New York, it was Puerto Ricans. It was Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, DR.
Yeah, we're rare. We're in Queens though.
I'm telling you, I wasn't in Queens. I was in Long Island. I was in Amityville. So I went from Long Island up to Orange County, town called Middletown, or close to Middletown. I grew up in the country. Again, I was different, bro. I was the only black male in my school. So, and I was back in those days, they tracked students. So I was in 7A, and probably 30–40% of the class was Jewish. I used to be mad because they used to take off Friday to go to their school, Jewish school. And I was like mad because I thought they were like getting half a day at school or something.
Oh, there's so much in your story, Ken. It's very hard to choose a question. But there is one that I would like to ask you in case we have some people who are listening to this conversation and who are on the line. They're on the line. I imagine during your past, there were a few times where it was one decision that was pivot towards health. And I wonder what advice would you would give to someone who's on the line who might make the bad decision and how to recognize these moments.
I talk about this all the time. So what will happen is you will come to a point where you have to make a profound decision. What you are given is choices. People say, oh, I need to make a choice. No, you need to make a decision. Decision says that I will make a choice and put action behind it. That's the decision. If you look up the verb, decidir, it's Latin. But anyway, there's action behind the decision. I decided to go to the store. Okay. That means I made the choice, and behind that, I'm going to put the action to go to the store. So we come to these points where we have profound. 99.9% of your decisions are going to be habitual. They're going to be rote decisions. Okay. They're going to be a percentage for each and every individual that are going to be profound. What do we do at that point? The number one thing to do, if it is available, and 99% of the time it is available, is we pause. We take time to have cognitive thought. And make sure you understand this. You want to make a decision that's based on intellect and cognition, not on emotions. Because emotions can get you in trouble and probably will get you in trouble. Okay? I'm angry, therefore I'll kill that guy. That's a decision I made on 3 occasions. Didn't find him, thank goodness. But on 3 occasions, I went to kill someone because I was angry, which is always fear-based. Okay, but I'm not gonna go all into that line of thought. But the key thing, first we want, so one of the things I teach on is I teach on a thing called gap control. What is gap control? Gap control is you will get input from external sources through your ears, through your eyes, through a touch, but it's coming through your senses, and you will have to make a decision on that information coming in. Can you go from reaction to action after forethought? Remember I said I had those words? You call me a punk. It's a reaction. I have a built-in script at that time. I've taken it away. I've taken away the power of those words. But I had a built-in script that I reacted. I had a gentleman on a fishing boat one time. I was on a fishing up in Alaska, and he spit in my face. And I always tell people, and it's not true, but I told him, I punched him before the spit hit me. Well, it actually was probably a second after it hit me, but I punched him, and that was beginning of a whole nother story. Okay. But that was a reaction. So what we want to do is create gap before we act, not react. So now we've created the act. And some people talk about the 7-second rule. I'm not a big one on time rules, but what I do want is I want to think cognitively to the best of my ability, because you may be, it probably will be in an emotion, and the predominant emotion is fear. Okay. But let's say that this is an emotion. I don't want to make a decision based on emotion. Let me think about it. And then what I do and what others can do is maybe a little different. What I do is I pray. And I have a prayer in the programs of recovery. You know, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out. And what I'm trying to identify, what is the right thing? God's will is the next indicated correct thing to do. And then I can do this. Again, it's great because I can say trained on it, but I've been doing it now for 10, 12 years. And so I know how to do that. First, and then the other thing is you've got to identify what is the truth in this situation. What's the truth? Are you willing to go back to prison? When I got sentenced on my last prison sentence, I got sentenced to 6 years. When I got sentenced, the judge told me, he promised me, I will give you the habitual criminal statute, which is 25 to life on my next felony. If I stole $51 in Reno, I would be sentenced to 25 to life. In California, I'd already had the 3 strikes. I had violence on my record. See what I'm saying? So I'm going to trade that in because you call me a B? Leave my family, leave my grandkids, leave my future. I'll die in a penitentiary. You see what I'm saying? But I can go there. But I pray and say, God, what's the right thing? Not the thing that's going to give me the most pleasure, not the thing that's going to be the least amount of pain, but what's the right thing to do in this? And then I do it. Another thing, I was talking to someone about this yesterday. There are times you need to run. What I mean is you need to extricate yourself out of that situation so that you can think. And then the last thing that I teach and suggest to people is get outside counsel. I mean, Charles, you're an advisor. Go to Charles. Talk to him. You know, if you work with Charles, especially if it's a business decision. I have 2 or 3 men that I can turn to that have been very successful financially and in business, that if I have a business concern, I can turn to them. Actually, what identify truth, create time, prayer or thought, act, don't react. Sometimes you just leave the situation and then actualize the solution with action and courage, and then seek outside counsel if you can. Not if you can, you should always, everybody who's listening on this call should have a mentor, should have a trusted advisor. That's my suggestion.
You know what? I kind of want to lean on that because that's actually a super important part for a lot of people that I think they don't take as seriously as they need to until they learn that lesson. But finding a mentor, maybe it might not even be like a permanent mentor, but finding some form of counsel is
Mhm.
incredibly important. Can you maybe tell us
Oh,
about your journey to finding counsel, or
I'd love
even
to.
how you would suggest someone to do that?
I'm writing a book on it. It's called Mentorship in Communities of Color. It's one of the books I'm writing. Let me just say, just real quick, just get us off the table. The books I'm writing right now as we speak. I'm writing a book on respect and disrespect. That's both in the community and the family and in the room. Okay. Moreland out of California, one of the greatest speakers in the world right now. So I'm writing a book with him on that. Then I'm writing a book on pragmatic fundraising because that's my subject matter expertise. And then I'm writing a book on mentoring in communities of color. Okay. So those are the three books that are coming out this year, and my next ones that are coming out. But I've been in mentoring for 15 years. I teach on mentoring. Obviously, I mentor. I have 4 generations of Black men helping Black men or mentoring Black men. I have a level above me because I'm the one, literally, I started it. But there's me, there's a level above me. I have 3 men. There's me. I have a level below me of men, the ones I've mentored and the ones that I'm mentoring right now. I have officially 12. At one time, I had 28 men. I just put this out there. I make $700,000 a year take home. That's my take home. That's not my gross. It's my take home. That's my taxes I pay on the gross. But anyway, I take home 700,000 a year. My time is valuable. Why am I on this podcast? So I can share a message of hope, resilience, come back from the setback, whatever you may want to call it. But hopefully I'm a value add. I don't hide anything. But what I'm saying is, at one point, I had 52 volunteer assignments, 20 task forces and committees and subcommittees for national organizations. And then I had 29 men that I work with. It was too much because I was trying to get the first book out, and I cut my 29 guys to that explicitly mentor. Let me tell you, one of the most important things in mentoring, I could talk on mentoring I teach workshops on it. I'm writing a whole book on it. But the most important thing that I do is when I sit down with a man and I look him in the eyes, I said, I have one responsibility to you, and that is to engender your dream. What is your dream? And then I shut up. I've had guys sit there for 10, 15 minutes because someone had sucked away, had taken away, had diminished their dream that they had when they were 16 or 15 or 21. Because I work with guys, everything from 21 to 55. I'm 62. And we talk about their dream. And then to sit across the table from a strong Black man who has tears flowing down because his dream came true. Took us 5 years. When I say us, all I do is I do a lot of different things, but the main thing I did is I support emotionally. I will give you information, provide information. I will introduce you to people. If you need to do something, I will help you financially to go to a conference, things of that nature. And most importantly is I will support you emotionally and give you a place where you are safe, that will never, never make you feel less than, for you to have this dream come true. That's what I do as a mentor. That's what I've been doing for 15 years. That's what I teach. And so now I also have a Black men's book study. We do nonfiction books. And we have a book study. And like I said, I have 4 generations. And so that generation that below me, they have mentees now. Because that's what I always want to do. And what's the name of the group? My mentor group? To pass it on. Mentor group. It used to be I may, but it was always a picture of me and my mentees. That's how important that is to me. That's how important that is to me. So thank you for the question. I could talk for a while on mentoring.
Yeah, thank you.
But it was a good question. I can read lips. No, I can't. But
I'm completely on you with the importance of mentoring. This is something that I discovered in Toastmasters, where you were just mentoring new members on how to take the stage. But more generally in life, every day I'm amazed by how complex it is to operate in this world, how there are so many things to learn, going from relationships to business to marketing. If you are in business, then obviously you have an explosion of things, to friendship, to just how to handle fear, how to handle difficult emotions. That we talked a little bit about that previously. There are so many things, and we don't learn about any of those in school. When you leave school, you think you know a lot, but your life experience is almost zero. The way I like to put it is that life really starts after you are 20 to 25 years old, when you really start to realize that everything that you do has consequences. And if you want a great future, it is something that you have to create from scratch today. So the importance of having people who are more experienced, who saw more things, who learned already many things, is so valuable. That yeah.
yeah, but it's not a but. The difficulty is this. There are millions of people with life experience, but can they articulate the solution? Can they articulate? And do they have empathy for the individual they're talking to? So check this out. It took me a few years, but every man that I work with and mentor, I've been mentoring, one of my guys I've been mentoring for 15 years. We meet every 3 months, sometimes in between when something comes up, but we schedule. So I have a thing called, and when you're mentoring, a lot of people talk about mentoring. This is my opinion. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They don't know anything about mentoring. It's not mentoring. It could be a friendship, it could be coaching, but it's not mentoring. That's my opinion. I'm cool with that. And so one of the ways that I make sure that when I mentor someone, it's called explicit mentoring. We have an explicit verbal contract. I say, I'm the mentor, you're the mentee. Are we cool with that? Yes, Mr. Miller. Yes, Ken, whatever they call me. Okay.
So formal.
But the key thing is, and one of the key things is, every man that I mentor, I look in the eyes and say, I love you. I love you. And I build trust with them. Sometimes for some people it's shorter, some people it's longer. But I build trust with them so that they feel safe to be able to share, because it's not going anywhere. I mean, I've sponsored guys in the anonymous programs, NA and AA, for years. I understand. With 2 books, everyone, no matter who you are. The 2 books are The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden and The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. The speed of trust. Trust is so important. And every time I meet with my guys, and I meet with them for 1 hour, In fact, I'm meeting two of them today, two of my mentees today. And I usually meet with them every 3 months, but for whatever reasons, we had to reschedule for today. And when I meet with them, every single meeting, we always start off the same way. Tell me about a win. We always talk about a win to start the meeting. And then we talk about usually an area they want to talk about or some concerns, some challenges. And then we go into, I have a topic every 3 months for the whole group. And I'm going to tell you something. When you talk about discernment, when you talk about pride, when you talk about respect, when I was doing 28 men over a 4-day period, I literally would start at like 6 o'clock in the morning and go to 4 all over the country. But you talk about a subject, by the time I got to the third or fourth guy, because I'm learning from the individuals I'm talking, I'm like, man, I got this subject. I understand so many different facets of respect or pride or discernment or maturity, because we always have a theme for that month. And I usually end up, hey, much love. And that took me a while to be able to do that to another man. Some are a little slower, but all of them say it to me back now.
I genuinely wish we had more hours in the day just so that we could talk about this very specific subject. Funnily enough, I am actually currently working on a book, and one of the biggest parts of it is explicit communication. How do
Oh, I
you
love it.
say the actual thing? But in to be entirely fair to you and our guests, this is my time to show my wellness, but to also bring something that is really important, because Geoff and I started this podcast selfishly to talk to incredible people like yourself, but we realized that doesn't help anyone. So what do we do instead? We ask our guests, is there one skill that you've developed, professional, unprofessional, personal, throughout your better to make their career better, something that they can begin to work on? And can you tell us what it is and why it's so important to work?
Yeah. And the work is done internal, even though I would suggest at some point you bring it into the external world, and you'll understand when I explain it. So I always think of life as like this. In memory, there's a great book by Tony Judt called The Memory Chalet. Great book. And I as an example, really it's like a metaphor for how I look at memory. And you're on the first floor, and that's your present. You walk up the stairs, and there's a long hallway with 50 doors, 100 doors. And on those doors is a date or an event that's hidden. You don't bring into the consciousness. And those doors, or what's in that room, is affecting you today. And so especially when I got out of prison after 3 years, a little over 3 years, I went to counseling, and I had a safe environment where I could open the door, go in there, and throw light onto the set pieces that were mom shooting. My father shot my mom 6 times, shot her, then came to shoot me. That's a truth. I didn't want to go in that door. I didn't ever want to relive that day. But I went in there, turned the light on it, and saw the truth as best I could interpret it. And so what you're saying, what I'm asking people is to take time to take away the power of your secrets. Because what happens is we have a tendency for the secrets to come up because something will trigger it, or it's just low lying in our subconscious, and it ends up affecting in a negative way others, or we deflect the emotion that's brought up onto another party. That's what we do. Okay. Or we take that pain, discomfort, and bring it back onto ourselves and hurt ourselves with bad relationships, with alcoholism, with drug addiction, with hurting. I used to cut myself. I was a cutter, as we call it. I'd take a razor blade and I would cut myself just to feel real. Just because I was in so much pain because I hadn't dealt with the foster child. I didn't deal with not having a mother. I didn't deal with the beatings as a child. I didn't deal with the shooting. I didn't deal with the other situations made me feel less than and not wanted. So to your audience members, and then let's put this. So if you are uncomfortable with that, one of the things, or doing it on your own, because sometimes it's real difficult for us to be accountable to self because we've let ourselves down so many times. So many times. I can't tell you how many times I said, I'm not going to drink this weekend, or I'm not going to buy crack on payday. I can't tell you how many times, but it's a lot. But what we do have the opportunity, if you have a trusted advisor, and I mean, it could be a clergyman, it could be a counselor that you pay money for, it could be a mentor, it could be a trusted advisor. Make yourself accountable to someone outside of you. So I would go to my counselor, and a counselor, we talk about an issue and say, well, I want you to write about it, or think about this, and let's talk about it when you get back. Now, if it was just for me, I wouldn't have done it. But because I wanted to go back to the counselor and because I would come and share. I would take time, whenever, in those 2 weeks, and I would think about what happened, what really happened. Peel away that emotion, because I'm feeling some emotion right now, but cognitively, intellectually, what really happened and why? What do you think were the antecedents that would make your father shoot your mother and then go shoot you? And I understand now, and I'm real good, because what it allowed me to do just for that door. That's one door. There's 50 other doors. But what it allowed me to do is give forgiveness to him. I have no resentment toward any living or dead human being in this world. Zero resentment. None. I've forgiven everybody. I've forgiven myself, and I've done some horrible things. So that was one. I hope I wasn't too long on that one.
It was
I only wish it could be longer.
I got 15 minutes, so whatever you guys got, you can cut it at a later date.
Wow, Ken, this was really amazing. The story you shared, your story, you shared your energy, you shared your wisdom, you shared hope, inspiration. There are so many things packed in this episode. Now, I would like to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests. I will give you the magic microphone. And the magic microphone is magic because it allows you to speak to everyone on earth. Everyone born yet. The magic microphone is your instrument to leave a timeless and universal message. You have 2 minutes. What do you want to share?
Well, my favorite saying of all time is, in the end, you will do what you want to do bad enough. Period. In the end, you will do what you want to do bad enough. And if you truly understand that statement, what I'm saying is, it's you. It's your responsibility. And because in the end, you did what you wanted to do bad enough. Okay. Whether it was react, act, good, bad, indifferent. And once you've taken responsibility, you can also solve for, because it takes you out of self-pity. Because, you know, to solve for this problem I've created, I can fix it because it's about me. I can't fix my wife. I can't fix my boss. I can't fix the judge. But what I can do is fix me. I haven't been in front of a judge in 21 years. Isn't that a coincidence? Okay. I was in front of a judge too often. Let's put it that way. So anyway, if I was to share anything, living or not living, take responsibility for your truth, good, bad, and indifferent. That's what I would say.
Truly profound words. Everyone is responsible for their truth, their way, but don't do it alone. And make sure that you reflect on the things that are truly important for yourself. Ken, thank you so much for joining us. It really has been an incredible adventure into your life, your world, but also a lot of things that can really help a lot of people out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are still listening, please make sure to like, subscribe, send this to someone who could use a little hope in their life or a little direction, or, you know, maybe even a couple laughs. Make sure to catch Casually Pro every Wednesday with wonderful individuals just like Ken. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.